Hello and welcome to the Coaching State. My name is Tony Husted. I'm a Master Certified Coach, and this is episode 9 in our series of The Subtle Art of Coaching. I also wanted to take a moment and mention to you that I also run something called the Mentor Club. And the Mentor Club is an awesome opportunity for you to receive mentoring and some supervision. We meet twice a month for 90 minutes each time, and we do a wide variety of mentoring and supervision processes, including listening to live sessions, practicing different aspects of very powerful coaching, and we listen to a lot of coaching sessions that are pre-recorded from you, the members of the Mentor Club, that allow us to dive deeply into how to make you a better coach. For a very low investment, you will get 24 sessions over the 1 year period, which will meet your renewal criteria, your renewal requirements of 7 group mentor sessions. And as a member, you'll also receive 3 individual mentor sessions with me, meeting all of your renewal criteria. If you'd like to find out a little bit more, head on over to my LinkedIn, search Tony Husted MCC, follow me, connect with me, and then shoot me a quick message, and I'll get you all the information. In today's episode, we're going to be diving into something that I call the 10% rule. And the 10% rule is what the coach gets back in a coaching session. Now, often we think, oh, me as the coach, I'm just providing what I call that container of coaching, and I get paid. I get paid for my time to do the coaching session, and at the end, I walk away with the money. I get to walk away with that investment that the client made into the coaching session. I believe there's something more, and I coined this phrase, the 10% rule, because I feel like in most coaching sessions, in a vast majority of coaching sessions, the coach gets back 10% of the value of the coaching, the transformative value, the insights, the awareness, the challenge of the session. So remember that coaching is a co-creative process. Yes, I hold the container, the client puts in the content and the context of the session, and then I come as the coach and I facilitate that co-creative process. Well, in the co-creation, the 10% is created for me, myself. So I'm coaching, then I take that in, and the client, we're focused on the client, we're focused on their outcome. But there's something really interesting that I have found for myself and with many other coaches who I talk with regularly through my role as the director of training. And what I find is that very often, this is way higher than I would think was statistically possible, what happens is whatever you're struggling with personally, whatever your challenge is, whatever your opportunity is, wherever you're digging in, whatever you're reflecting on, taking, just keep going with those types of topics. Whatever it is that is your topic this week, what's on your plate this week, is almost inevitably what someone will bring as a topic. It may not be the exact same topic, but it's often very, very similar to the topic that a client will bring. And through coaching them, you, the coach, get something back. Their topic is your topic. And when you dive into that topic and ask your client those questions about the topic, what inevitably happens is you have to ask those questions of yourself. You're going to be challenging their mindset, for example. And as you do that, you have to a little bit question your own mindset around it. When you challenge them, when you live, hey, okay, what are you going to do right away? In reflection, as mentioned in core competency number 2, that we are supposed to, especially in the new 2025 updated core competencies, we are supposed to, as coaches, have ongoing learning, ongoing education. We should have a reflective practice, a contemplative practice, an integration practice where we're taking and developing our coaching skills. Now, that's what the core competency is really about. It's about our own coaching skills. And I would say, I think it's actually is broader. We should be taking what our clients are learning, the insights, the ahas, the awareness, the openings, the new insights. We should be taking those and then having our own process. Now, I also believe, on kind of a side note here, I believe that you should have your own coach. Every coach should also be receiving coaching as a form of mentoring, supervision, etc. But nothing builds the belief in coaching as a coach as much as being a client and receiving it. I offer as an instructor of a level 1 and a level 2 ICF accredited program, I find and I often tell new students as they're coming in, half the value of our program isn't the coaching skills. It's what you're going to receive by being the client. Now, beyond that, of course, we've got our education. We need to be continuing our education. Core Competency 2 says that we also should be receiving mentoring and supervision. What a great way to receive mentoring and supervision is to mentor ourselves. Go back, look at what did our client bring up? What was challenging in that conversation for us? And then ask ourselves the question. Look at my own question. When I draw out a values conversation from my client, after the session, I might want to sit down and go, okay, well, what are my values that maybe are underrepresented in my life today? Like I do an exercise like a values wheel with a client, and I notice something that they're doing, and like, oh, well, hey, maybe I could, look at this as well in reflection to myself. As I mentioned before, core competency 2 also talks about a reflective practice to deepen your own self-awareness. As we're drawing our client into this conversation, this co-creative space where we are creating their awareness, our awareness should be growing as well. That's part of the 10%, our own awareness. As we have those, let our intuition roll and flow, and the client starts to tap into new things, that should inspire us to then do those same questions of ourselves. Um, Beyond that, I believe too, as we use in our programs, we use integrative models, we use whole systems models that are applicable to any situation anywhere. They're whole systems model. They look at the entire system of a human system. We've got motivational models, we've got models of the world that we use. And as you integrate those, as you understand those more, as the mindset, and the mindset is really our thinking. So as I go through, what I have found is the more I deepen my understanding of the models that I use, what I apply with my clients, the more I'm invited, I've invite myself to explore them for myself. As I'm asking my client, what capabilities do you need to grow? Somewhere in the back of my mind, I have to ask myself those questions. Well, what are the capabilities? What are my cutting edges? Where are my opportunities? What are the aspects of my skill set, of my strategy, that if I focused on them would give me the most opportunity for growth, the most opportunity for increased awareness? I've got to reflect those back on myself. So my practice is to take 5 to 10 minutes, depending on what I have coming up next, after each coaching session, go through my notes and not only reflect on what the client is working on and exploring and creating for themselves, but what is the opportunity within what the client came up with in the session and reflect that back to myself. Kind of a self coaching session based on what the client brought. When the client, I often get insights when I ask a question of a client. The question pops in my mind. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a great question for me too. And so I'll quickly jot down in my notes what it is that I could explore afterwards. I think another big area as a coach myself, and one of the reasons why I always keep coaching clients, is the pattern recognition. I'm looking for behavioral patterns. I'm looking for language patterns. I'm looking for life patterns that my clients might have and be able to point those out, to bring those up as an awareness. So I noticed that my client, every time I ask a question about what they could do, they give me, for example, I was listening to a mentor session the other day. Every time the coach asked a really nice question about how the client could move forward, the client would give a challenge, why they couldn't move forward. What we might call in the Shipley lexicon, in the coaching state lexicon, what we might call a critic. And I noticed that every single time the client brought up a critic, and the coach would address the critic by taking it to a plan and what's going on there and how might you move forward in that area, what could you do to mitigate that, etc. And then the client would throw out another negative and then another negative, And the coach did a really nice job of going, Mr. Client, I've noticed that each time I ask this question, you tend to go to the negative. What's in your way? What could stop you? And those are valuable conversations. What I'm really curious about is, and then they go to the question where they really want to explore. In the same way as I'm noticing patterns in my clients and I'm seeking those patterns in my clients, I also then notice my own patterns. What are my patterns? What do I tend to do here? Not just in my coaching, but in my own life, in my striving for excellence, in me trying to fulfill and create the legacy that I want to be, that I want to leave behind. Those questions I have to reflect on the pattern recognition. So, what are the patterns that you see in your client that are literally a reflection in the mirror of what you are doing? On top of that, another big point, I think, and this is one that I love for the 10% rule. My clients are often making progress. They're overcoming obstacles. They're winning. They're achieving. They're hitting their milestones. They're achieving their goals. They're making contributions. They're creating a legacy. They're leaving a mark. They're moving forward. And with each of those items, there's an energy. And there's that shared energy. It's like being when I lived in Seattle, the Seattle Seahawks won the Super Bowl, and there was an energy. Even though I've never been to the Seahawks stadium, well, actually, I did coach a Seattle Seahawks quarterback, a backup quarterback for a short time early on in my coaching career. I didn't really have any direct stake in the team or anything, but when the team won, there was an energy to it. A million people showed up in Seattle for the parade. Talk about energy. Well, my clients have energy and being part of that process. Quantum entanglement. We're connected. So when they hit that energy, when they get that win, when they've got that celebration, when you ask them, what was most valuable for you out of today's session? And they spout that energy, they pick it up, they become confident, they change their posture, they change their breathing. That rubs off on me, and I leave my sessions uplifted. That's actually where the 10% rule came from, that I leave each session 10% more energetic. I've got that flow. So when you're coaching, remember to do these things. Be using and integrating the models that you have. Be using pattern recognition. Notice what their patterns are and really tap into the energy of the client. Allow it to flow into you. Allow yourself to grow into that. Another example of this in action, I like to think of it this way, like an apprentice, somebody who wants to become a sushi chef. I had no idea that was going to be challenging to say today. An aspiring chef who wants to be sushi, wants to cook sushi, prepare, I guess would be the right term. They start as an assistant. They watch the sushi chef cook for several years before they are then allowed to start to do it. You pick up on that. You grow from that. You watch, you develop the skills by observing. We're doing the same things. In many ways, we are the apprentice to our client as we apply the coaching conversation. I also used to teach dance. I taught dance for many years. Um, for those of you wondering and don't know my background, my favorite style of dancing is swing dancing from the 1920s through the 1940s is my favorite styles of swing dancing. I do many different styles, but I've also taught ballroom and was the executive director of a ballroom dance studio for a couple of years. And what I found really interesting was there was always better dancers taking lessons than me. And of course, it's some of the other instructors and some of the what we would refer to in the dance world as coaches, which were really the professional dancers that we brought in, world champions, national champions, etc. We brought them in to teach. And I would observe, I would watch them teaching a student and noticing certain things about their dancing. Sometimes I would be asked to give a student feedback. Now, remember, these students often were higher level dancers than me when it came to ballroom. My specialty, I tended to have the most skill set, but when it came to just ballroom in general, because I didn't have the background in ballroom, I would have to notice something about their dancing. Well, I then needed to apply that to myself. It's like, oh, well, I corrected them on their, the way they transition through their foot. Next time I'm doing it, it's like, oh, hey, I should pay attention to that myself. And I found that my level of dancing came up quite a bit just by the observation and giving feedback. And in that world, it was about teaching and giving feedback. A little bit different than our coaching world, but every time I learned, I grew. I was studying, I was practicing myself, which again comes back to that practice of, the ongoing education as is discussed in core competency too. As we are reading books, you see lots of books here on my shelf. This is just kind of the current set of what I'm working through and reading or have read recently. I've got a whole bunch of books over there on another shelf in the closet that are a little bit older and waiting to be delved into. I watch videos, etc. So I'm always in that ongoing observation. I'm in that ongoing learning process. And that is part of what I do as the coaching. So, my question to you as we wrap up here, I'm really curious. What is your reflective practice? How do you integrate what your client gets out of the session into your own personal growth and development as a person? And of course, how do I become a better coach? I think a lot of coaches in that distinction, they're really focused on how do I be a better coach? How do I be a better coach? I think it's two conversations, hand in glove. It's two similar conversations. How do I become the person that I was created to be, that I was called to be? How do I fulfill my purpose in this life? This time, this space, and in conjunction with that, how do I become a better coach to my clients? So, what is your reflective practice? How do you integrate the learning of your clients into your own life so that you can be a better person and receive all that compound interest on the 10% rule? Please share down below in the comments section what your practice is, and of course, any questions that you might have. Hit that like button, share, etc. Please subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more of these videos and stay up to date with what we're doing here in the field of coaching. I really appreciate your time. I hope you have an awesome day, and we'll look forward to seeing you in our next episode of The Coaching State, the subtle art of coaching. Thank you.